welcome back to your first aviation informative video. Today we're going to go on a topic which is one of the most basic aviation topics, how an airplane flies. Let's get into it. So there's 4 basic concepts for you to understand this topic. First, you have to understand lift, as well as drag, thrust, and gravity or weight. So let's start with lift. So lift is what makes a plane able to take off. A wing and flap give the plane lift. Once the plane reaches a certain speed with enough a lift from the wings and the flaps, the plane can take off. Now let's talk about how does the wings or flaps give lift. So the wings are designed in a shape called the aerofoil shape, which is designed very similar to the bird's wing. So it is shaped so that air on top of the wing flows faster than underneath. Therefore, on top of the plane, there's lower air pressure. So therefore, under the wing, there's higher air pressure. And all this air pressure gathers up and pushes the wing of the plane up. And if you don't know what flaps are just a downward extension of the wing. So the longer the wing, or the wider the wing, wider and longer the wing is, the more lift can generate through the air pressure. But anyways, through enough lift, the plane doesn't just take off vertically, right? It has to tilt its nose up. But how does it do that? So if you look at the picture on the right, you can see those things coming out from underneath the tail. Those are called the horizontal stabilizers. And they have like these rudder controls on them. So these, when you push it down, that'll pull the tail down, causing the nose to go up. Therefore, with enough lift and thrust, it is able to take off. And that's just a regular wing on your left. And in the middle is just an example of what maximum flaps look like. Now let's talk about the next topic. Drag. So drag is the aerodynamic force that pushes against a plane's motion when it's flying through the air. And so drag is the opposite of thrust. So therefore, thrust has to overcome drag. By the way, lift overcomes gravity or weight. As you can see in this diagram over here, you can see the opposites, lift and weight, and drag and thrust. So let's talk about what causes drag. So everything on a plane causes drag. It's weight, right? Every single part of it. Engines, tails, nose, every single part of it, tail, horizontal stabilizers, everything causes drag. But how do we reduce it? So one thing, you can look at the picture on the right. Rough skin increases skin friction drag. Therefore, you can assume that smoother skin will decrease it, right? And also, the less surface area on a plane will also create less drag. For example, let's take a look at an A380 in the middle. Look how big and wide and probably not smooth that plane is. It's going to have much more drag than if we look at a fighter jet on the left. It's so sleek and thin and so smooth, so it's going to flow through the air faster, creating less drag. Now, let's move on to the next one. Now this is gravity or weight. Now I'm sure some of you middle schoolers or 5th or 4th graders, I don't know what gravity is, so I'm not going to explain that. But so just for a quick overview of what gravity is just pulling everything with mass towards the center of the earth, or center of whatever the biggest body there is. So the gravity or weight on a plane is obviously pulling the plane towards the center of the earth, and lift overcomes it. So enough lift really depends on the weight of the plane and a bunch of other factors, but it's mostly think about the weight of the plane. If there's more weight, there's more mass. And if there's more mass, there's more gravitational pull towards the earth. Therefore, more lift is needed to overcome that gravity. Therefore, longer wings or more flaps need to be applied to generate enough lift. Right? See, all of these factors are based upon each other. That's why it's important to know all 4 of these, because they're all looped together on how to make a plane fly. So gravity is pretty simple, and is one of the biggest factors that engineers had to face, of course, to getting a plane and a giant piece of metal to fly. But with enough lift applied at the right amounts of times, you will achieve that goal. Now let's move into our final topic. Let's move on to thrust. Now thrust, it comes from the engines or the rockets or the propellers. You can see an example of a jet engine is on the right. A rocket is just the back of a spaceship. Propeller is in the middle. That's on a Cessna. And on the left, that's a jet engine as well. But usually they would call it like, I don't know. It's just a much stronger engine for fighter jets and all of those planes so that they can go faster. So let's talk about, I'm not going to talk about how the engines work, but I'll give you an overview of what that is. So similar to the wings, the engine's fuel is fuel, yes, and air. It needs air. So air gets sucked in through the engine and pushed out the back. Now, if you look up at a plane in the sky, right? Sometimes you'll see these white lines or white clouds, it seems like, coming out from behind the engines. That is actually the air coming out behind the engines. But it's so cold up there that it shows up like the white clouds. You know, when you're on a cold day and you breathe out like, you'll see your breath. Same thing, except it's engines, and it's definitely going to be much, much colder up there. So that kind of explains it. So, again, your most common one would probably be a jet engine if you're going to fly commercially, or even if you're like flying like for fun or a really, really short flight, then you'll probably see one of these propeller planes. And some example of propeller planes that are like commercial planes that might be more typical would be like a Q400. Alaska flies them. They have quite a bit, I think like around 60 planes. So that's probably, and you'll see these jet engines like parked next to the terminal and all of that. So like the main thing that applies. And it can also depend how much thrust is needed for a plane. So there might be stronger engines and more engines needed for various types of planes. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this aviation informative video. Hope you like and subscribe and comment down below what you like and better. Dynamite.